In this tutorial, we're going to use Photoshop CC 2020 to create double exposure to create this star boy, which uses a double exposure technique with a clipping mask. So it allows you to create kind of a different type of effect that you could then use with, maybe you want to wrap a text around it, maybe you want to have him pointing to something. So let's go ahead and get started with our star boy. Let's do a file save as. Let's go ahead and save it as first initial last name _ star boy and as a PSD. I'm going to go ahead and put in my double exposure folder and say save. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and image size. And we can see it's pretty big. Let's go ahead and take that width down to 10, that resolution up to 300, and preserve details, and OK. Alright, so the first thing we want to be able to do is make this into a smart object. So right click, convert to smart object. Let's do a Control minus. Zoom out a little bit. We can do a Control L and play with those levels. Not a lot to do with the levels on this one. Play a little bit with them. Say OK. Now next thing we've got to do is get rid of this background so we've got something to clip it to. If we don't go ahead and do that, then we will not, it'll just clip to the whole thing, which is not what we want. I'm going to go ahead and grab my magic eraser, which works really well on this one because it's all one color. I'm going to grab my magic eraser. Oh, it wants to rasterize. Alright, go ahead and rasterize. Then we'll have to go back and flip it to a smart object. I lied. Change. So let's go now and go ahead and my move tool. Let's go right click, convert to smart object. Alright, now we're going to try that again. Alright, let's go ahead now, make sure our image is mode, should be RGB 8 bits. We're good. Let's do file and place. Embedded. And let's go to our assets where you've downloaded them and grab that Starboy 2 and hit place. And I know don't need to cover the entire thing, so I go ahead and hit place. Let's go ahead, came in as a smart object, do a Control L, and let's play with those levels. Make some of your darks darker, some of your lights lighter, until you get it where you want. Say OK. Alright, next thing we're going to do is change that blending mode. So from normal, let's go ahead and come down here to lighten. You can of course try something else if you like. I'm going to go ahead with lighten today. And we get kind of a weird effect, not quite what I want right now. If I were to play with it right now, I'd end up with this star kind of right in the middle of his nose, which I don't love, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust that a little bit. Maybe stretch it. Yes, okay. Go ahead and change it just a little bit. Grab my move tool. Kind of move it up a little bit so I'm not ending up with that quite in the middle of his face the way it was. Alright, I'm happy with that. Alright, next thing we're going to do is do a right click and create clipping mask, and it's going to go ahead and clip that exactly to the edges of my image. So it's a very, very simple way to create that double exposure without having to do a ton of work. And now we can go ahead and do a file and save as. If we just go ahead and save it as a PNG, it will retain that clear background. So if you wanted to wrap text around it, you could. And let's go ahead and do a file and image. Let's do a duplicate. And instead of copy, let's make it flat and say OK. Now let's go to image and come down here to layer, and we want to go ahead and merge visible instead of flatten, and that'll go ahead and keep our transparency for us. It's exactly what we want. And creating that double exposure with the clipping mask is really, really pretty simple. So I hope you'll be able to use it somewhere along the way. That's all for this one.